I'm Mark Callion, Mr. Saltwater Tank, and this is Mr. Saltwater Tank TV. Last week, I talked to you guys about how to frag hard corals. And as promised, this week I'm going to talk to you about how to frag soft corals, because it's a whole different world and it's a different process involved. And along the way, I'm going to explain why I'm wearing these high school chemistry goggles, looking like a complete idiot, and a very important step that will protect your furry friends like Bart here. So hold on to your hats, let's go cut up some coral. To frag soft corals, you're going to need bone cutters, tweezers, super glue, a frag plug, Tupperware container to hold your trimmings, and a pair of safety goggles. So why am I wearing these goofy looking safety goggles? Well, zoanthids actually contain a toxin called paleotoxin, and it is poisonous to human beings. So whenever you're working around zoanthids, whether it be underwater or if you take a rock out of your tank and you're working in it in the open air, you want to make sure that you wear eye protection. Because if you're cutting the zoa in the open air and it squirts you in the eye, those toxins can get into your bloodstream. And if you're fragging underwater, let's say you get some on your hand, you won't be able to know because it doesn't feel slimy and there's no color to it. If you then pull the hand down and accidentally rub your eyes, then you can get in your bloodstream as well. And it can cause your heart to race, it can cause you to feel kind of weird. Sometimes you even need to go to the AR if you get enough of a dose. So it is poisonous, you need to protect yourself, wear your eye protection, and ideally you would wear glove protection too. Now I don't because I can't wear gloves and get kind of the tactile motion that I need, so I take that risk. But I do always wear eye protection whenever I'm working around zoanthids. So just like when I fragged hard corals, I'm going to go ahead and access my Apex here and turn off my pumps inside my tank. This will make sure if any of these little zoas, which are very light and have a high tendency to blow away, if they get away from me, they're not going to get sucked under a rock. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn off my pumps, let them turn off, let the flow die down a little bit before I go and cut up these corals. All right, they're off. Let's get going. A lot of people recommend that you frag zoanthids with a razor blade and tweezers, and I actually don't recommend this method at all. Now why is that? Well, see how small and tight these zoa polyps are? Well, cutting out a single polyp or even two polyps, or maybe three, with a razor blade and tweezers is damn near impossible. Unless you have steady hands like my friend Mike, who's a dentist. So I've actually come up with another method that's way more effective for fragging zoas. Since zoanthids are so small, I recommend you frag them actually cutting the rock underneath them, which you can do with a pair of bone cutters like we use for fragging hard corals. This way the zoas stay stuck to the rock, they're not blowing around my tank, and they're going to be easier to glue when it's time to put them on the frag plugs. So here's how we do it. So I'm just going to go after these guys kind of right here. And I'm going to lose some polyps in the process of this, but I'm okay with it because this is way easier than trying to cut off these individual polyps because you can see how small they are. There's no way I'd be able to get one or two polyps off with a razor blade. It's just not worth it. So I'm going to come in here with my bone cutters and just start working on the rock a little bit. And you just kind of have to work at it, see which way the rock's going to give. You can see there's a nice clump of them right there. And see now that piece is just already starting to come off a little bit. So I'm just going to work behind it a little bit more. Just kind of push the zoas off. And it's pretty much off, so I could tear it at this point, but I'd like to keep it as intact as possible. Because just like hard corals, if you give people more for their money, they're going to come back and they're going to be happier. It's all about paying it forward. All right, so there's this little piece. Pretty much got it off. So here's a nice zoa frag that I've just cut off of the rock. No tweezers needed. It's safer because it's under the water. If there's any toxins released, it's going to go in the tank, not in my eye. And then I'm just going to put this in my little frag tray and glue it up once we're all done cutting these polyps off. All right, it's time to mount up the zoa frags that I cut out of my zoa garden at the beginning of the episode. And I've got my tweezers, I've got the zoa frags here, a little bit of tank water in my Tupperware, my frag rack, and my frag plugs. And of course, you need the super glue with the cyanoacrylate in it. As always, make sure you have this stuff. And then what I'm going to do is just go ahead and put a little bit of glue again down on the plugs. And don't be afraid to use a lot of it because it's cheap. I got it set. Make sure I got all that I want on there. Cap that off because this stuff dries quickly. If I can get the cap on. There we go. And got the plugs. Dip them a little bit, help that glue haze over. And then I'm going to grab my zoa frag. One thing you got to make sure you do is you put your zoa frag right side up. If you look, you can see where the zoa has crunched itself up, it's caved in on itself. So I know that that's the right side up. So I'm just going to take that off stick it down on the rock, push it down a little bit, and let it sit there on the frag plug and set up. In the meantime, I'm gonna grab my other frag plug, get it wet a little bit, get that glue hazing over, set it down, grab my ZoaFrag, this. You're gonna wanna make sure that the ZoaFrag is right side up. And you can see where these Zoa polyps have closed up on themselves. Since it's stuck to a little piece of rock, it's easy for me to tell. And then I'm just gonna stick it over here onto my little plug. Stick it there, get it down on the glue. If I lose a polyp or two, yeah, not a big deal. Let these sit for a minute and then put them back in my tank. And we're just gonna place our ZoaFrags that we created right here on my frag rack. Let them recover and then sell them off. So just like hard corals, soft corals have to be dipped before they get into your tank. There's plenty of soft coral pests out there, from zoanthids nudibranchs to flatworms. You want to get these off in case they're there. Even if you don't see them, dip it. There's no leeway in that every single piece of coral that comes into your tank from another tank has to be dipped. And I recommend CoralRx as a dip to get that done, because it's not overly harsh, but it's effective. And here's how we're gonna dip some soft corals using CoralRx. Dipping soft corals looks a lot like dipping hard corals, except for one important step you gotta add in. So I've got my ZoaFrag here in my Tupperware container with the CoralRx solution. Remember, it's 30 drops of CoralRx per gallon of tank water that you've taken out of your tank. Now, I can't stress that enough. Get a gallon of tank water, take it out of your tank. Do not put CoralRx in your tank. Sounds like a no-brainer, but I gotta put it in. So you take out the tank water, 30 drops of CoralRx per gallon, shake it up, and then put a little bit in your Tupperware. Just like hard corals, one coral dipped per the solution. So I'm gonna dip it, throw the solution away, put the frag in my tank. So I'm gonna let this frag sit in here for 10 minutes, and again, I'm gonna be swishing it to make sure that fresh solution gets in touch with that coral. And there's a piece that you're gonna wanna add in here. And the piece that you're gonna add in is, while you're dipping the coral, you're actually gonna take it out, grab a soft toothbrush like this. These are cheap, you can get them at the grocery store. And I'm just gonna gently brush the coral. This is gonna take any pests that might be on there. It's also gonna get rid of maybe any fungus, anything like that. But I'm just gonna brush this zoanthid here to help knock some of that stuff off. Rinse my brush off, brush it a little bit more, work it around, turn it upside down, swish it some in the solution, really making sure that this coral gets dipped very thoroughly. So brush it a little bit, put it in solution. You can do it underwater, whatever works. It's another little step, but it's very, very important when dipping your corals. And don't forget it. So after 10 minutes, I'm gonna take the frag out, put it in my tank, throw this solution away. And if I have more corals to dip, I'll put in a fresh solution of CoralRx. Now, you remember earlier I talked about paleotoxins, and I'm inside of my house now with coral. So you might be wondering, well, isn't that a problem? Well, if we're not cutting zoas and paleos, then I'm not so worried about the toxins getting out. There might be some toxins here in this solution, so I'm gonna make sure it gets thrown away. But I'm not so concerned about it if I'm not actually cutting the coral to release those toxins. Now, if you happen to drop a frag on the ground and your small animal goes to grab it, make sure you keep it away from them. So it might be a good idea to put your cats and your dogs or your small children out of the area. So that's how you dip soft corals. Just like hard corals, growing and fragging soft corals can be a lot of fun. Just remember to take the necessary safety precautions by wearing your safety goggles and let someone know what you're doing. So that way, if you start acting strange or if you complain of chest pains or your heart racing, if they take you to the hospital, they can tell the ER staff about what's going on with you. Again, paleotoxins can be very, very toxic. It's not something you mess around with. So take the precautions, and if you feel a tight chest or you feel strange in any way, go ahead and take yourself to the doctor and get treatment. If you're in this hobby for fun, it's not worth risking your health just to make a couple bucks off some frags. So until next time, I'm Mark Callahan, Mr. Saltwater Tank. Enjoy your tanks, know your tank personality, and have a good one. I'm Mark Callahan, Mr. Saltwater Tank, and this is Mr. Saltwater Tank TV. Okay, I don't know what I want to say. And of course, I'll be going over, I don't know, what do I want to say? And today we're going to talk about how to solve. As well as a very important step when fragging soft corals, how to frag hard corals. And the dishwasher is going off. How you doing there, boo 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 boo? You're getting freaking heavy, porker. I'm Mark Callie. Son of a... Any day now. For any reason I lose a piece, it isn't gonna get blown. Which one is it? If you keep abreast of what's hot in your current market, and you got your tank crews, it's late. You keep abreast of what's hot in your coral market. Can I just go to bed? And I'll be honest, you can make it. You can get your corals to grow fast, and you keep abreast of what's hot in your current. I need water. Grow fast, and you keep abreast of what's hot in your current market. So now what I want to say. When you get a frag, make sure that you dip it. Dip it. I'm going to keep saying this. You have to get this. Okay, enough of dipping. We'll switch slots soon. I'm Mark Callie and Mr. Saltwater Tank. Until next time, know your tank personality, enjoy your tanks, and have a good one. Finally, I get to go home.